Assalamualaikum students, and welcome to the video. Today we will be recording speaking test 4. My name is Kisa Fatma and today I will be your examiner. My examiner number is ABC. May I have your good name please?
Yeah, sure. My name is Muhammad Ibrahim Hassan.
And may I have your ID?
Sure.
Thank you. Speaking test 4, part number 1. Where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in a lot of places. I was born in Islamabad back in 2000 and I spent the initial 6 years of my life in Islamabad. After that, I had to move to abroad with my family. Of course, my father had a posting over there. So I would say that I grew up in at least two places. One was Islamabad and the other was London.
Okay. Was it a good place for children to grow up?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say there is no place like home. So my home was Islamabad, so it was a fantastic place. Lots and lots of parks to go to, lots of good educational institutes, so definitely a fantastic place.
Okay. Where did you usually play?
I can't really remember where I used to play when I was in Islamabad, owing to the fact that I was really young at the time. But I do remember that when I was in London, I used to go to this park called Walthamstow Park. It was right next to our school and it was a really beautiful place to visit. There were all of these slides and different people coming with different children. So that was a really good place to visit.
Who did you usually play with?
When I was back in primary, I remember I used to play with this boy and his name was Adam Danzi. He was basically from India. So he was my playmate and we used to play all sorts of stuff with each other. Basically they were all physical games like football and cricket and all of that stuff.
Part number 2. Describe a city that you have visited. You should say what city it is, when you went there, why you went there, and explain what you liked or disliked about the city. Dear candidate, you will be given a minute to prepare and you have to speak about this topic for 2 minutes. Your time is over now.
Okay, should I start speaking?
Sure.
Okay, so back in 2019, I visited Lahore with my elder brothers. Two of my elder brothers accompanied me in that journey. And the reason why I visited that place was because my elder brother was opening up a garments shop. So I had to accompany him for doing some shopping. Sorry. It wasn't a really good experience, to be honest, because we visited in December 2019 and you would think that in December it would be really cold, but that wasn't the case in Lahore. For one thing, there was a lot of smoke over there. Because of that we couldn't see really well, and you know, after every minute or two the driver would stop the bus because of the smog issues. When we reached to Lahore, we basically visited this place called Anarkali Tower for doing some shopping and stuff. Over there it was extremely hot, and as I was telling you that you would expect it to be really cold, but when we went there it was an anti-climax totally. We went to a lot of shops and almost in every single shop there was a fan on. So we had prepared in a way that it would be really cold over there, but it was extremely hot. So that really marred the experience overall. But still I would say that it was a good experience in a way that it was the first time I traveled to Lahore. It was the first time I traveled independently actually, because in a way my parents weren't there, their supervision wasn't there. I was just with my elder brothers, so you know, brothers are different. They're a little different. If I had the chance of going back to that place, I would definitely go back, but I would choose a season that is more suitable to travel in, because as I was telling you that, you know, stepping from Islamabad to Lahore, going from Islamabad to Lahore, the weather changes drastically. So because of that I didn't it didn't really suit my personality or didn't really suit my aptitude towards the place. So I would go there, but in a different season. Yeah.
Okay. Part number 3. What are the advantages of living in a city or a big town?
There are a lot of advantages of living in a city. There are a lot of amenities that you can't access while you're living in a village. For example, if you're living in a village, the different things that you have in terms of education, or if you have if you have a medical urgency, for example, it becomes very difficult for you to find good help if you're living in a village. But if you're living in a city where you have a lot of hospitals, granted that cities are a little expensive in comparison to villages, but still the facilities you get, they're not replaceable, and I would never ever bargain a city for a village in terms of the facilities. So I would say that the facilities you get in terms of medical attention and medical help, and the educational facilities you get, they are not replaceable in cities.
Well enough. Do people enjoy a better quality of life in the city or in the countryside?
If we just talk about the quality of life, I would sort of categorize it in a way that in cities, I was speaking about this earlier on as well, that in cities you get a lot of medical help if you're in need. So that is one way that enhances the quality of life. Extremely sorry. That is one way that enhances the quality of life while you're living in a city. Whereas if you compare the food that you can have in a village, I always say that the food that you have in a village is pure. And the food that you have in a city, it's not really that pure. It's more of a prepared and processed sort of food. So I think that if we talk about food, definitely villages have a competitive edge. But if we talk about in general the facilities, cities definitely have a competitive edge over villages.
Okay. What are some of the challenges faced by towns and cities?
I would say that the biggest issue that the people living in towns and cities face is of pollution in general, because there are a lot of cars in big cities and in towns. For example, if I take the example of Lahore, as I was telling you earlier on as well, there is a lot of smog over there, and the reason behind that is the excessive amount of vehicles that are on the roads over there. So that is something that comes with living in a big city or a town, that you have to face certain issues such as air pollution or something like that. But in villages, you don't really have to face challenges like that. You may have a more backward way of living in villages, but the environment, it's generally more healthier than the environment in a city.
Okay. What can be done to reduce traffic congestion in cities?
One way would be to improve the infrastructure of public transport. You see, the main reason why people travel by their own vehicles is because public transport isn't really that reliable for them. So if public transport is to be improved, I would say that more than 90% of people would prefer to travel by public transport, because for one thing, it's cheaper than traveling in your own vehicle, and for another thing, it actually significantly reduces the pollution, as I was talking about it earlier on as well. So if we are to reduce the overall carbon footprint, or whatever fancy terms we have for it these days, I would say that an improvement in the transportation sector would reduce the amount of vehicles on the roads.
How important is it to have trees and parks in our cities?
Yeah, it's extremely important to have trees and parks. If we look at Islamabad is really ideal in a way that it has a lot of different trees, and there are a lot of parks. In every single sector you can find a park. And the reason behind that is the thought that we need to grow more trees in order to make, for one thing, our environment more sustainable and more livable, because we're actually reducing the amount of oxygen. Because the more the people are on earth, the more oxygen is required. So trees, of course, they are a vital source of oxygen. So I think that it's extremely important to have more parks which have more trees in them.
Okay. In your experience, are city centers usually attractive places?
City centers, in my experience, more than being attractive, they are congested, and they have more traffic than you would want in the rest of the city. For example, if you have a look at some of the city centers in Islamabad, if I talk about I-8 city center, I would say that there is a lot of traffic congestion over here. There are a lot of different vehicles coming from all over town because everyone wants to visit the city center. So more than being attractive, it's more congestive. So I don't really agree that city centers are really attractive.
Okay. Dear viewers, that was all for today, and stay tuned for more.